where should I store my receipts and bills? Yeah, this is something that a lot of organizations ponder, especially because more and more companies are going paperless to various extents. And I want to share some thoughts with you about what to consider regarding going paperless. So in essence, there are three types of places where you can store receipts and bills that are transaction specific. One, keep them on paper, store them in a filing cabinet. Two, scan them and keep them in some kind of system that's not necessarily your accounting system. And I'll give you some examples. And three, scan them, or better yet, keep them electronic in the first place by reaching out to your vendors, customers, donors, etc., and using people, processes, and technology that keep you from having paper in the first place. It saves a lot of time. And actually attaching those transactions to your accounting system. And here are some thoughts that might guide you as to where in these three types of methodologies you might want to weigh in. So first, consider to what extent you and your team can organize and access any records that are outside of the accounting system. If you have a geographically dispersed organization, you do not want to keep those things on paper. Get them digitized or set up the processes so they're never paper in the first place. So for that, attaching them to the transactions in the accounting system is fine. Also, if you have a third-party app like HubDoc or Expensify or EntryList, any backup documentation or source documents can be in that app. And even though the backup may not, or the source documents might not be in the accounting system itself, it's easy enough to find in the third-party app. You also might want to consider how much is at stake if an income tax deduction is challenged. How much of this stuff should I really keep? If you want to set a level of materiality, below $10, we're not even going to bother with receipts, whether it's digital or paper. Okay, I got that. You can set your materiality level wherever you want to keep it. Just don't forget one thing. It's not just the materiality of one transaction. It can be the materiality of all of the transactions in that expense category, because if the IRS comes in, does an audit, and they look at a large number of low dollar amount transactions, and they say none of these are substantiated, and then next thing you know, your 5 figures worth of tax deductions are no longer tax deductions, yeah, that one's going to hurt. So don't just consider one transaction, but to consider, well, how much do we typically spend in that category? And then make a policy. Do we keep the source document, the receipt, for example, or the bill, or do we not? So another thing to consider is how conducive is learning another app to your team. If they're a little bit app shy, forget the third-party app. Scan something and get it directly into the accounting system so they don't have to learn a new technology. So that's something that you might want to consider. So those are some things that you might want to consider when, where should we store our receipts? In one other thing on my mind, if you're thinking of changing your accounting system now, or if you're foreseeing some kind of a growth trajectory or some kind of an organizational change in which you might be changing up your accounting system, you might want to go for a third-party app or a separate storage instead. I'll give you a quick example. There's a technology called Smart Vault. It integrates with QuickBooks Desktop and maybe with other things by now. The documents are actually stored in Smart Vault, which is an online tool, but integrated in QuickBooks. So you're looking at QuickBooks, you can click on the little paper clip and see the transaction. But if you were to transition from QuickBooks to something else, those documents are still there for you, you haven't lost them. Whereas if you're in QuickBooks Online, you have all these documents attached in QuickBooks Online, and then you transition to another system, you're going to have to do a serious data dump. Because when you discontinue your QuickBooks Online subscription, you're only going to have access to it for so long, and then it's goodbye. It's so long and thanks for all the receipts. So If that's the case, then you might want to consider not necessarily keeping the source documents native in your accounting system, but keep them someplace else really well organized and really easy to access.